Hey, this is Gene, the day after that game in Munich yesterday. So I'm going to talk a little about the game. It's really one of those three-act type of plays. I thought we played pretty well the first 30 minutes. Obviously, they scored about the 27th minute. We kind of like shift off there. Um, I think Donana has to make that save, and it did kind of like changed how we played after that. We were pretty dominant up to that point. We had a couple chances. Well, I'll talk about further in this video the 5 things that we learned from the game, and I do want to give some credit to Stephen Allison. I just basically used his idea. I don't think he trademarked it, and other people do this stuff, so I don't think it's going to be a big deal. I have 500 subscribers. I don't think he's going to care. But I want to talk about what we learned from that game. All these flies around. So it was like in three different areas. The first 30 minutes, I think, were the better team. They did okay after they scored, and then they scored like 4 or 5 minutes later. Still, I thought a little bit out of against the run and play. So they went up in the first half 2-0. And I'm sitting there, I go online, I do my live, and I sit there and say, this is the worst Bayern Munich team I've seen in 30 years, that we had chances to score. We weren't brave enough in certain areas of the pitch. And the first goal, although Onana has to save it, our defenders didn't react. The second goal, we allowed him to get in the box, and nobody came back and tracked back. And I'll talk about in the 5 things that we learned from that. So it's 2-0. I think there's a possibility there's a penalty in the first half with Perlestri, wasn't called. So we at first, second half comes out and we're dominating them again. Again, they're up 2-0, so they think they can just do this. And then we score, and right there, I think that if we can hold it for 4 or 5 minutes, that they're going to start shitting in their pants, that we're going to come back and beat them or get something out of this game. And then we do the same. Can't really blame Eriksson, but he's the one who lost the ball at midfield. And we had chances to clear it. We didn't do it. He had a chance to clear it. He didn't do it. The issue that I have is that the UEFA and how they look using their VAR versus how the Premiership does that, it should be the same. I don't think they call that in the Premiership. We saw what happened with Spurs with us was clearly a foul, a penalty, and they didn't call it. And this was even less. So it's 3-1, and there's a time there for about 14 or 15 to 20 minutes that we played with our head down. We allowed them to hold on to the ball. They had chances to do things to make it 4-1. They didn't do it. But that's based on the reason why, because of our attitude at that point. We basically said, you know what, I don't want to get beat 4 or 5-0 at this point, even though we played well up to that point. That mentality leaked into the game. So they didn't score. Then we scored, made it 3-2. Casemiro, Bolding, making sure what he had to do. Well, actually, before we get there, Rasmus scored and made it 2-1, and 5 minutes in, and then we have a chance. And I know that this Bayern is almost historically for a type of team that actually folds at the pressure if you actually have that on them. And we just allowed them to come back and score again, and that's the penalty, and they made it 3-1. And they just, at that time, they opened up, they used their talent. They had chances, they didn't do anything, and then we got 3-2, and then we couldn't hold it again. And it was a nice goal. I mean, the last goal was nice. The fourth goal was really nice. The third goal was the penalty, and both times Casemiro scored. So the final score probably flatters us, but not really. I think the 20 minutes that we didn't play, that's on us. It has nothing to do with Bayern. This team does not impress me. It really doesn't. I think that if we get our mentality together, that we're going to hurt them when they come to Old Trafford. So, like 3 areas of the game, the first 30 minutes we were fine. The 30 minutes between 50 minutes before first half, second half, we were fine. In about 15 minutes of the last 30 minutes, they dominated the game. Could have gone up 4 or 5, didn't do it. The last 15 minutes, they were nervous, and we got the 2 goals at the end. This team is not better than us. Hopefully we understand that at the time, and I want to talk more about this further in my video. So, what did we learn from this team? All right, I had five little things that like Steven talks about, so I'm going to talk about first. The first person is Hoyland is a star. He's an absolute star. He got one opportunity, scored from it. If if Rashford would be more clinical and actually would pass the ball to him, I think he would have had other chances. He didn't do it. He tried to score it on his own. It was strange that Rashford became, and I'll talk about that further in this. He was actually making passes when Martial got back on the field and when Garnacho was on the field. So I'll talk about that. But he's a star. Rasmus is the guy. If we can keep him healthy, he's going to be a 20 goal scorer in the league every year. I love how he plays, the passion, and we should have done better for him because he made that pass or goal and got us back in the game. But we didn't do that, and we allowed Kane to get his goal against us, which he didn't do anything in that game. The other thing I want to talk about is Eriksen. He's just not good enough at this late in his career or where he plays for us. If you hear the sound in the background, somebody's putting a pool further down from me, so you're going to hear that little sound. Sorry about that. He's just not good enough. He doesn't track back. Although I know he's very intelligent, some of those goals he was responsible for because he didn't get back and clog up the midfield right there on the top of the box. So a lot of that's on him as well, and that leads to the desire to track back. It was lacking with McTominay when he came on. Eriksen, it was lacking. At least Bruno was getting back several times. And I do have to say, and I said this before the game in my preview, I said I think the reason why Palestri is in the game, regardless of the fact we don't have Sancho and Anthony outright, is that he will get back and track back, and he did that. So he kind of like took away from his offensive side of his game to track back and help Delo as much as he could. They didn't really do anything on that side of the field. Most of their attack came from the other side because Marcus was not tracking back. Every now and then he would come back and help Reguilon, and I like seeing that from him, but his attitude, we'll talk about in a minute, was disappointing as the guy that's getting paid the most probably on the team. So I'll give Palestri his flowers. I think he played good enough, and also the young guys did what they had to do. The older guys didn't do what they were supposed to do. And again, I don't really blame Eriksen, but if he's so intelligent, he just get back and track back. So some of those goals wouldn't have had him happen. And I don't really blame him for the penalty, but he got himself in that position because he didn't do what he should have done 60 minutes before that, 60 seconds before that. At this point, Rashford is an enigma. As soon as Hoyland left and Martial got on the field and Garnacho got in the field, all of a sudden he started playing and he started crossing and he started having these little link-ups with Martial. And I guess you can understand that. They have like that relationship, kind of almost symbiotic relationship, so you understand that. But the fact that he was actually crossing the ball into Garnacho and he wouldn't do that, Hoyland, for Hoyland, is concerning to me. And I'm getting to the point now that I just want Garnacho, Palestri, and Hoyland to lead the line. He's a talent, but he's got to be more than this. He has to be, if he wants to be at the next level, he has to do more than what he's showing. And how he looks on the field when he's Marcus Rashford, the guy's been there since he's a little kid. He plays for Manchester United all this time. He is not the guy that's supposed to be raking his hands up and just acting like Bruno at this point. He's supposed to be somebody else that's different than him. So at this point, he's an enigma. Talented, yes. Football IQ, not as well it should be. But again, Eriksen, I think, has high IQ. Didn't do what he's supposed to do. He's just an enigma at this time. And finally, I think Onana will come good. I've seen De Gea missed similar saves. I remember one against Messi. He just basically hit it underneath his right here, and we were playing okay in that game, and that changed everything. I don't blame him for losing the game, the game was lost when we didn't care for about 20 minutes, and then we're just like we're going to hold on and we'll take 3-1 and we'll get out of here. Um, I don't think all the players like that, but there were several players that seemed to just did that. And that's why they allowed Bayern to have so much of the ball. It was like, oh my God, this is Brighton all over again. But it is what it is. The question, the real issue is Saturday, or is it Saturday? It might be Sunday. I have to look. But the turning point of the season has to be against Burnley. We have to go out. We have to have a real performance, and we have to get some goals. We have to show that we can play defense and just move from that. That's the real turning point. The score line might flatter us. The people who watch that game know that about the 95 minutes that was in that game, we played at the same level or above Bayern for at least 2/3 of that. So people say we didn't deserve what we got at the end, that Bayern took over the game after they scored their third goal. That normally happens. You become more open with what you play. You play with more confidence. My only issue is that when that happened, we should have not just set back and just allowed it to happen. There has to be a time, there has to be a player on that team that does something, that gets a foul, that charges up the other players, that just does this. And that only happened until after we got to 87 when Casemiro scored. And all of a sudden, they were nervous. It was 3-2 at that time. And they had the last goal was a great goal. I don't know if he can defend that. But if somehow we get out of there, that doesn't, let's say, just shoots that over the top of the bar and we get the ball back, I think we get a draw of that game anyway. I think that Bayern has a lot of holes, and we do at this point, and it's early in the season. So it's this time, maybe Bayern will be better. But again, I said it during the game, after the game, Bayern is not a threat to Manchester City. This is not happening. They're not a threat to Arsenal. Not happening. I don't think they're a threat to Madrid or Barcelona. Not happening. I think this idea that they're one of the best teams in Europe, they're okay. They might be in the top 10. So I think if they come to Old Trafford, if we can do well, I don't know what our next game is in the Champions League, but hopefully it's that we do well at home against one of the other teams, and we end up getting better in the league. When they come back to Old Trafford, I think we're going to have something for them. But let me know your thoughts. Do you think the 4-3 flattered us? Do you think that because really the entire time Bayern was the better team and they had different levels that they left, and then once they got the goals, then they showed their levels. I think that they got their confidence and our heads went down, and that's when they dominated the game. If we didn't let our heads go down, they wouldn't have dominated the game. Every time we had the ball on either side, Reguilón got in, Rashford got in. We had chances, and they couldn't deal with us. So we'll see what happens. I feel better now when it comes to Champions League. The league is just totally different. I think that the league is so hard, and it's not like we're going to Burnley and they're just going to full over for us. It's not going to be that way because they need points as well. And if we don't beat Burnley, dude, we're going to be in a regulation fight at this point. So we have to do it. These players have to show up. They have to do something. If we don't, then the people that just don't ever want us to do anything is going to be out, and they're going to get rid of our coach, and we don't want that. Tell me your thoughts in the comments, and we'll see what happens. You guys have a good day, and we'll see you later. Bye.